of 6.34 billion. I think, Mr. Chairman, my advice to the management on this is that since we all know that insurance business is a risky one, I think we should properly look at our risk assessment. We should have a very good risk management system in place also in order to reduce our underwriting profits. And again, to ensure that our risk is not too much to drive us into losses. So I want the management to look into our risk assessment system in this company in order to have robust underwriting profits. Again, I want to ask from the board also that post-COVID-19, what effect has COVID-19 has in our company as AIICO Insurance post-COVID-19? What does the effect has on our company? We would like to know. Because the account we are considering today, it's as at 31st December 2019. So we want to know so that we know what we expect as at December 31st, 2020, because ordinarily, looking at what happened this year, COVID-19, NSAS, and so on, we might not likely get this type of result next year because this COVID-19 started in March. So I want to know that also. Page 158. Where we have note 33, where we have other operating expenses. Because when you look at the underwriting profits also, the problem that most insurance companies have is that they don't watch their expenses. And I can see it here on note 33 that our travel and representation expenses moved from 567.5 million to 636.7 million. I want the board to look at this. This is on the high side. The same thing on marketing and administration, from 334 million to 400 million. Dues and subscriptions from 80 million to 103 million. Office supply and stationery from 119.9 million to 300. Office dues and subscriptions from 80 million, to 103 million. The same thing on office supply and stationery from 119.9 million to 343 million, 343.8 million. This is on the high side. I want the management to also look at this. Then I will come to NICOM level. From 263.9 million to 368 million. I want to ask, this NICOM level, is it the compulsory deposit, or I don't seem to understand? I want the MD to give me what it meant, because I can't really understand the NICOM level from 65.9 million to 368 million. The same thing on regulatory fees and expenses. From last year, that is local licensing and filing, to 241.8 million. I think I need some explanation on this, that for local licensing and filing, from nil to 241.8 million. Still on NICOM. Looking at this, I don't really understand NICOM. Are you helping us to, we stakeholders, we shareholders, to get returns on our investment, or you are killing our investment? Because all this money we are talking about is not NICOM money, it's shareholders' money. So I'm using this opportunity to appeal to NICOM to please they should soft pedal. They should consider the investors. They should consider the shareholders that invested in insurance company. Lastly, like the earlier speaker said, we would like to know how far we have gone for year 2020. Once again, thank you for the opportunity given to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bakari. We have taken the note of all the questions, and it will be replied appropriately once we other members put the questions. Next, anyone else has any questions on the accounts?
Through the chair, Shibu Zeke, please.
We want to name me Chibu Zongusu. It's okay it's a name. I want to start. Chairman, members of the board, regulatory authorities here present, fellow distinguished shareholders, good afternoon. Yes, I want to share the appreciations that earlier speakers have already tendered to the management and the company. However, I don't want to repeat what the earlier speakers have said, but for a matter of emphasis, I want to say the management, you've done well, especially when you look at page 13, the highlight. All the indices there, all is with plus. Shows that our company is properly managed. Yes, page 8, my colleague, they've talked about the bonus. Then I want to take both the bonus and the recapitalization together. I want to ask, if after this recapitalization, how do you intend to manage the float? MD, I will be asking that because it's not to get the money, but the management of that money becomes another issue. On page 28 and 29, talks about donations. The donations there are all okay, but we should shift from business to business to recognizing the less privileged in the society. On page 16, I see that our financial assets have really grown. From the group, we have 35%. No, from the company, we have 35%. And the group, in page 15, we have 42%. This is very, very good. So keep it up. One of my questions will be like this. On page 16 still, with 119, talking about statutory deposit. I will want an explanation while our statutory deposits there dropped. The 30 million there, I'm asking whether it's fine that the NICOM charge us. Going to trade receivables on the same 16, your trade receivables, the policy I know in insurance is no premium, no cover. But having that figure there, I will need an explanation. On page 150, borrowing, IFC loan. Have you started paying the interest? Because since they refused to convert within the period, my question is, have you started paying the loan? 158, finance cost. By nature, the item 34 is not explicit enough. Going forward, please give us complete information there so that we can be able to know and trace the figures. On this note, Mr. Chairman, I want to appreciate the staff and management for keeping this company growing and growing higher. And I pray that God will continue to strengthen us in Jesus' name. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guzot. We have taken a note of the questions. Thank you. Anyone else?
Through the chair, maybe we have one or two more. Mr. Nonna.
Yes.
The chairman, other members of the board, in person and virtual. For the records, my name's Nonna Awo. And I want to start my 197 to 205, which I'll be taking along with page 10. I find there that we have the contacts of our professionals. But if you look at those contacts, especially on page 197 to 205, where the registrar featured prominently, one of the things that you will find is that no contact in the real sense of it. No phone number, no email. And I say this because even the last rights issue, if we were to take statistics, some of us are waiting for approval from SEC. Quite a number of shareholders didn't get their rights circular. The registrar is not to serve the company alone. The responsibility of the registrar is to serve the shareholders. And I don't think this is what we are getting in this instance. How many pages? Not one line of contact. And I don't think it's good enough. And I'm hoping that this will be a mistake that will never happen again. And because all of us are shouting our government wants to take unclaimed dividend. But this is the environment that we create to make all of those happen. And I don't think it is proper. By the way, for the auditors, I can't find anything in this annual account that is indicating the size of unclaimed dividend. Because for me, my understanding of it is that unclaimed dividend is a liability on the company. It's not the company's money. Neither is it government money, though government is looking for ways. Unfortunately, a government that begins to steal from its citizens, then you begin to wonder which type of government is that. But I know that this stealing was not initiated by government alone. You also have a regulator, SEC in this instance, that doesn't have a understanding of what regulation is all about. And that's why we are in this mess. They can't run government, the private sector, they want to run them down. So we begin to wonder, where do we go? It's probably the next election we should import foreigners to come and run for presidency. Maybe that will help us. Now that we are looking for mercenaries to help us take Boko Haram out, let's also employ mercenaries to come and run government for us. But SEC has been a total failure. But some of us are not surprised. Because if you find a man who is now sitting at the helm of affairs in SEC, who was non-executive in the last tenure. You know, somebody in government, you become executive. It makes nonsense of anything called independent of SEC. It's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. I'm saying all of this because if you look at page 255, yes, in 30 years, you haven't checked. If you check page 205, I meant to say. If you look at page 205, what you'll find is that in 30 years, AIICO has been able to pay dividend 13 times. Or rather, AIICO has been able to pay dividend 17 times and not able to pay dividend 13 times. But we are hoping that going forward, 2021, that dividend becomes a permanent feature. Because the reason that anybody invests is to be able to get returns. But if you, again, the company secretary, I will want you to take special attention in this. If you say you pay dividend, certainly there is an amount that has been paid. For that record to be complete, put the year, put the dividend that has been paid in terms of amount, and extend it by saying this is the size of unclaimed dividend that is standing on it. That picture then becomes total. The same thing applies to the script issue that has also been made. Though I noticed that in one page, partially provided, but you should have a comprehensive position, because that is the only way that new investors will be able to assess the performance of the company. With a dividend, where you also extend the price, because again, I didn't find a 5-year position in terms of price. People can then do what your payouts are. That gives you a better picture. People can better assess you, and then in the process, will be asking themselves, do I put my money in AIICO or not? Some of us put our money in AIICO just because of the share certificates. In the 80s, share certificate was dollar branded. So we didn't want to only hold dollar notes. We also wanted to hold certificate that were also dollar designed. But having said all of that, Mr. Chairman, I think there is also a major, major mistake in the agenda of today. Though I've been informed that there are also some adjustments. Even those adjustments have further complicated matters. If you look at page 8, where you want to take the share capital of the company to 40 billion shares, it's absolutely unnecessary. That itself is one of the major, major challenges of the insurance subsector and a few banks. When you have that size of shares in issue, it creates problem for you in terms of quality of payment. Even the bonus that you are doing this year, you can't do them going forward. Yes, bonus is not as important for some persons as a dividend, but when you have 40 billion, for you to pay 5 kobo, you know how much you need to. So, but to then complicate matters, with due respect, if you look at page, you relate that to page 29 and page 151, what you are going to find is that even after the initial position in terms of your bonus, the total number of shares in issue will be approximately 21 billion. Why are you asking for? Yes, I've just been told that you're making adjustments, moving the 145 bonus to 148, to 128, and then you want to move the date of the current position to December. All of that, again, will be negative to your signing and undertaking with the Nigerian Stock Exchange. For your information, those 2 bonuses have been marked. So if they've been marked, who is going to pay for the differential for the people who have lost money? Who is going to pay? You can't change. You don't change. It's like you changing the game of football in the middle of the match because you have scored 1 goal and you begin to pull it back. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. And I don't think this is the example that AIICO will want to give. Because fortunately for you, AIICO is one of the few insurance companies that is doing over one naira now. But when you begin to put some of this drama in place, it creates problem for you. So please don't come forward with any of those, because if you do, some persons will take you to court, and it makes nonsense of your life. Did you find out, Company Secretary, I want to confirm, when was the first bonus marked? 145. The second one is also being marked. When was it marked?
September 23rd.
Okay. So why are you coming out and say you want to reduce the bonus from 145 to 128?
The reasoning which I've been
No. You have opportunity. I'm just telling you the implication of, because what we are doing is that you are punishing some persons with this action. You are punishing them. Because at the point in which the 145 was proposed and it was given to Nigerian Stock Exchange, it was marked ex-div based on 145. 145 means that he's losing more money than 148. Now you are bringing it to 148. Are you going to refund this money? If you make an assurance that this money will be refunded, which means the difference in price between 145 and 148 times the amount of shares that you have sold, it's important that you state that. And then you probably be chasing the man who probably bought at a lower price when he should be buying at a higher price. Ask him to pay the difference. Please don't mess up these things. I don't know who your financial advisors are, but they haven't advised you well in this instance. They haven't advised you well at all. Please don't go this route, because if you go, you have plenty of messy situation on your hand. Please. Please. And I suspect that the reason that you are moving the second date, that again has been marked, is because you probably want to capture those of them who bought the right issue. That's why you are moving this date to 28th of December. But that itself is not guaranteeing that SEC will give you approval. But much more important, it's been marked. It's been marked, which means anything that you are doing after that date of marking is also illegal. It's illegal. I think you need to sit down and talk to people who understand, not this emotion or Jankara advisors who jump. Please. Please. You are complicating lives with some of these small adjustments. But that wasn't the major reason why I came. But now that you've also brought it to the fore, it's important that, first, the people who bought the rights cannot qualify for this 145 that you are approving. And you can also not go back on 145 to 128. You cannot. Because if you do, I will ask for the differentials of, and it can be very messy, like I said. So don't let us go. I can share with what is resulted. But having said all of that, and I'm hoping that you will pay attention, is the fact that if you also look at page 34, which I will be taking with page 51, I am not comfortable with the fact that, yes, I know no excuse is being given for a director. Two of them really in terms of board meeting, but one of them was very consistent in not being regular at meetings across board. And one of the things that you have done is the fact that the fee, director's fee, is one lump sum and is paid in the last quarter of the year. My understanding of that is that for 2021, that fee will be paid in this quarter. Okay, so which means it's an advance payment. But if you do an advance payment when you are not certain of the regularity of the director's attendance at meetings, that becomes a challenge for me. Except that we are saying that the approval that will be given today for 2021 will not be paid until the fourth quarter of 2021, which I'm sure is not the situation. So again, we need to be careful. So what I will be suggesting is that when we get to director's fee payment, please, let's begin to pay our directors on a quarterly basis. It's the same amount. And the reason that is important, with due respect, is should directors not be able to attend a meeting in the quarter, he doesn't earn anything. He doesn't earn anything. But the way it's been put, whether he is there or not, he gets the money. And I don't think it is good for us. Much more is the fact that even in the structure of cost, I've taken time to look at your financials from beginning to end. That itself has its own implications. So I just want, except that the explanation that you have is contrary to my understanding of the annual account. First, I must also confess I'm not an accountant, so I don't know enough of accounts. I'm basically making a presentation based on what I read from this annual account. Having also said that, I think that going forward, on page 49 to 51, I don't think that the profile of directors should not be updated. Because this is the story of who provided it almost 3 years ago, then it also becomes a challenge. So please, let's update the profile. But much more importantly, we must also indicate the days of appointment. That way, people have a better understanding what is being done. But I don't think it would be right for me to leave this page without talking about what you have on page 61. I'm not sure I understand it. Chairman, I'm told, and 30 million. 30 million doing what? Doing what? 30 million? I'm sure there's an error. And I want to be told that I'm not correct. Page 61. Chairman.
61? That's auditor's report.
30 million. Page 61. Oh, sorry. Okay, but
The 61 is independent auditors.
No. What I find, a mix-up maybe, but I will confirm the date, the page before I leave. But I'm told there that director's fee is 161. It's 161. Chairman, 30 million. That is the fee. Am I correct? At least I'm correct as to what you wrote. But I want to think that what you wrote also has an error. So I want somebody to explain to me that it earns 30 million. Because as the chairman, maximum 6 meetings in a year. 6 meetings, he earns 30 million. But on the same page, I want to ask that the range analysis of director's fee should not be just at 2 million and above. That again does not tell any story. Because the annual account is supposed to tell a story so that people can understand exactly what you are doing. But the way it is being said now is basically abridged. I know that in secondary school we used to do objective, but the level you are now is past secondary. You are in tertiary. So please make disclosures that are readable and communicating. Okay? I want to, without repeating what has been said, on page 125, which is also reflected on 191 and 192, I am not too certain as to what we're doing for the general business, because I find the general business for 2 consecutive years have made a loss of 868 million. I know our biggest strength is in life, but the other leg, we shouldn't be riding a bicycle that has only one leg. So what are we doing to make sure that the non-life business is also making good contribution to? And in particular, if you take page 192 and 191, you'll find that fire, we made a loss. Agric, I can understand Agric and also as the size. But even in the life business, annuity, we also made a loss. Ordinary life, we also made a loss. So I want to understand, because the reason I'm saying all of this, if you are increasing the size of paid up the way we've increased it, yes, I know that our 9 months profit is already higher than our full year for 2019. But I also do recognize that even the way we stand now, the paid up is 3 times what is currently, what it was in 2019. So for you to be able to do the size of earnings that you've done in 2019 means that you must also triple your bottom line. And I know that, again, given the government and government approach, in an era that you are asking insurance companies to recapitalize, you are issuing out more license. And I wonder where these government workers, where they come from and where they get their inspiration from. You're asking some people, your business, go and recapitalize. They are struggling to do that. You put more license. For in the same industry that people are looking for the necessary manpower to run the businesses. So I don't know. You're sick. It's like they have double K leg. You then get to NICOM. Those who have double right legs. I then wonder how they will work. So it's a total confusion, really. But I think on our own, because we have control over some aspect of our own lives, we should look at what we do and make sure that we don't do them upside down. I will also be hoping that going forward, because one of the major areas I also have challenge with what we're doing, having looked at page 119 to 191, we need to take another look at our investment and by extension the income that comes from it. I don't need to preach to you, but you know what the interest rates are going now. You know what treasury bill rates are doing. So we need to have a total relook at what we are doing in terms of our investment. And by extension, what is also been mentioned in terms of the IFC loan. At 6.5 now, I'm sure they'll be happy that they're making good money from us. But not only that, we also have the punishment of the foreign exchange loss. As indicated on page what, we've already lost about 140 million in the year under review. So what is it that we are likely to do differently with the IFC loan as far as the punishment that we also get from foreign exchange fluctuation will not be the one that will also give us some problems. Because $7 million is no longer small money. If the exchange rate goes to 500, 600 now, I'm sure we'll basically will be working to pay the loan. So it's important that we begin to ask ourselves, what can we do differently with the IFC loan? I want to close on the note of the fact that yet 50 years, and like I said, some of us, the attraction in AIICO was the fact that the share certificate was dollar. But I think that for a 50-year-old organization, part of the rebirth that some of us are seeing, we are hoping that it's one that will be sustained. But in sustaining it, it can only be sustained if we also up our game. And in upping our game, it will require that we begin to ask ourselves, is it only these directors who can be on the board? Because if you look at this annual account, yes, we have opportunity of having a board of 15. That will be large. But who is representing the minority interest on this board? Who? Even in your disclosures, which is a major, major area of challenge, because what people are buying, anybody who is buying investment is basically buying information. You need to disclose a little more. For instance, if you look at the account, on one page you said, oh, part of the money is money with magnatis. Disclose the amount. Who is representing who on the board? Because now you have the two major shareholders. Who is representing them? Disclose. That way people can trust you for your words, rather than somebody saying, oh, that man that you see there is representing James. Meanwhile, the other person will tell you is representing Juliana. You cause a lot of, So we need to also up our disclosures, because that is what will take us to the next level. So far, I don't think you are doing badly, but given the size of resources, typical Nigeria, you want to compare yourself with Togo, and I don't think that's what you want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We have taken a note of all your questions, a big list of questions. We will try as much as possible to respond to your questions. Thank you. Donald, maybe we can take one last one, looking into the time constraint, please, if there's anyone.
Yeah, so, Mr. Vide, it would be helpful if you're brief, please.
Please, yeah, because...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, the chairman, the members of the board, the regulator authority present, and my co-shareholder, and the people at home watching us. I will just take a few questions. Page 188. Seeing the page, thank you for disclosing everything. When one takes the annual report, you can be able to go through and see that nothing was under hiding. Then page 190. Sir, the company portfolio management has performed averagely. Please keep it up. Page 52. Mr. Chairman, sir, you and other director should strictly attend committee for a good corporate governor. Our regulators are looking for a way of to penalize us, so we should please look for a way not to take our money. Page 60. The board and the director they need action for future reoccurrence, sir. Sir, 2019, nobody knows what will happen 2020. You know, some claim that will happen this year. There is no insurance that has think of it. What are you doing in future for anything that will happen? How can we get over it, sir? Many of your agents are outside. They are doing aggressive marketing. But on a Greek aspect, are you looking into it, or what are the steps? Many people are diverting to Greek. What are the steps you are taking to ensure that money are coming from that aspect? On this note, I thank the Board of Directors and the CS.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the comments from the shareholders and the members. We'll try as much as possible to answer all your questions. I will request our CEO, MD, between him and the CFO, we can take it up one by one and try to answer all these questions. Mr. Tunde.
Good afternoon, shareholders. Thank you very much for
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Technology. Okay, thank you for the very comprehensive questions. I will answer many of the questions, and the CFO would also be brought in. My apologies, shareholders. I have a bit of a sore throat, so I can't answer everything. So I'll answer the ones that can quickly be clarified. I'll first start with the IFC loan. Firstly, thank you to Mr. Lawrence, Mrs. Bakari, Mr. Eke, Mr. Nonna, Mrs. Obide. Thank you for your questions. So the IFC loan, we had agreed to prepay the IFC loan when we realized that the dollars was going out of control. And although it's been difficult getting dollars from the CBN, we can tell the shareholders now that we currently have about $16,000 outstanding to pay. So essentially, that will not be in our 2020 accounts. Thank you, sirs. On trade receivables, the law allows us to have a trade receivables for up to 30 days. So any trade receivables you will see in the accounts is in line with the law, exactly. So just within 30 days and it's settled. Otherwise, NICOM would not approve the accounts. Yes. We noted your comments on the finance costs, and the CFO has noted that. Although going into 2021, we won't have any finance costs after the IFC loan is paid. On the statutory deposits, it was a reconciliation done by the CBN, and that showed that the amount was actually 500 and not 530. So there was no payment to NICOM or anything else. It was just a reconciliation that the CBN was doing with all insurance companies. Yes, sir. Okay, I wanted to also briefly provide some context on our business, because there were several questions on underwriting loss and underwriting profit. And if you bear with me, shareholders, I'll just provide some context around the way the business is presented. So we present our accounts based on IFRS 4. Now, IFRS 4 requires us to recognize all the cash flows that we receive from policyholders in any particular year. So for our life business, where we have long-term contracts of 20 to 30 years, what essentially happens is that we collect the premium, we provide calculations on the reserves, and we reserve for the future. Now, that is done through an item before underwriting profit called change in life funds. It's essentially a change in technical reserves. It's not a cash payment. It's for us to actually reserve for future payments in the future. So when you're analyzing our accounts, unfortunately, IFRS 4 has been a problem for analysts and shareholders because it appears like we're making an underwriting loss. Where you have underwriting loss and underwriting profit is more applicable to risk businesses like non-life or group life. The reason for that is most of the risks that are transferred to us for the life business are basically interest rate risks. So when there's a movement in the yield any particular year, there is a change in the value of the liabilities that are owed to the policyholders. That movement in 2019 was increased by 21.7 billion from 3 billion. You would observe, if you've seen our September accounts, that's increased further. And that comes back to your point, Mr. Nonna. When the interest rates or yields reduce, then the present value of cash owned increases. So that movement is essentially what is captured under before underwriting profit. But if you observe, our actual underwriting profit from the non-life business actually increased in 2019. Now, what the board has done, not AIICO board, but the IASB and the applicable boards, is to change the insurance standards to IFRS 17. Now, this will be applicable from 2023. In that account, this will not be reflective anymore. You'll be able to see insurance service profit, investment service profits separately. So currently, I'll give you an example. If you buy an annuity from AIICO Insurance and you pay us a single premium of 10 million naira, that 10 million naira, based on the PENCOM regulated annuity, is a guaranteed period of 10 years. If you're alive after 10 years, we'll keep on paying until death. But we recognize that 10 million as gross premium written. And then we do the change in life funds to the balance sheet. You can see where the problem is. Under IFRS 17, we would not recognize the 10 million. We would recognize the amortized portion of that contract for the duration of the expected life of the policyholder. I hope that clarifies aspects around the business. So that's the reason for the underwriting loss. So when you see annuity and ordinary life having an underwriting loss, the reason we still have the profit is because the movement in the liabilities also have the same movement with the assets. So at the end of the day, we still end up with a profit because the profit we're gaining from that is the investment of those policyholder funds. So it comes back to your point, sir, Mr. Nonna. Yes, yields is a problem today. And one of the key things that we'll be doing is diversifying more within our non-life business, and I'll provide some more context on that, sirs, throughout this presentation. Okay, there was also a comment on recapitalization. We are, as at 2019, our capital was 6.2 billion. I will be rounding it. Then we did a private placement, which raised 5.2 billion from Leapfrog Investments and AIICO Bahamas, increasing our current capital to 11.4 billion. We also did the rights issue, which was over 100% subscribed, raising 3.5 billion. Should the bonus to be declared be approved at this AGM, we should be capitalizing 1.1 billion to give us a total capital of 16 billion by the end of 2020. The requirement of the law from NICOM is for us to meet 50% of the new capital, which is 9 billion. So that means AIICO would have excess over minimum capital of 7 billion by the end of 2020. And that brings me again to the next question. What are we going to do with this capital? Now, there's been a lot of discussions around local content. And indeed, one of the reasons NICOM is increasing capital is to improve local content. The law requires us to retain 5% of our shareholders' funds on special risks. So of course, if the capital for companies increase, then your 5% retention increases. And that means you can retain a large part of the capital within Nigeria, especially for oil and gas, aviation, and other special risks. To the use of the funds, on the life side of the business, we're exploring additional health insurance. Health insurance in particular, unlike other sides of insurance, is typically bought and not sold. So we have found that there's a strong correlation between merging both our life business and our health business as well. We'll be deploying some of the capital to drive some growth within the health business. And the Insurance Act actually allows insurance companies to do health insurance, at least a fee-for-service type arrangement. On the non-life side, there was a comment on the profitability. I'm delighted to inform the shareholders that as at September this year, the profitability for the non-life side is positive. So we have been able to turn around various aspects of the business. Our strategy has been largely focused on what we call the magic of fixed costs. That means we will grow our sales while keeping fixed costs constant. Now, what has been happening over the past few years is that we'll grow our sales but also increasing our fixed costs. Now, we are going to be focusing on that strategy and driving that into the future. We are already 14% on gross premium compared to last year on the non-life business. And on the group life business, which is also a short-term business, we are up by over 30% compared to last year. We would expect, of course, there was a question around what the impact of COVID has been. There's been an impact from 3 areas: the shock in oil and gas, in the oil price, COVID, and the riots. Now, insurance has been affected by all 3. For the oil and gas, it means that the IOCs have not invested a lot in new projects. It also means that a lot of our clients have been looking to pay us their premiums either on a quarterly basis or 6-month basis. So the cash flow for most of our clients have not been favorable. But we've been able to manage that while still growing our top line. On COVID itself, we've had 2 impacts. One is the impact of the recession, so people have reduced spend on insurance generally, but also companies have also paid a lot for group life insurance for their employees. So we found that even the federal government paid for their premium that they've not paid for the past 2 years. So the group life business has done quite well in terms of new revenue because of COVID. On the riots, we are all corporate and non-life businesses will be affected by the riots, especially for customers that have what we call an SRCC clause, which is strike, riots, and civil commotion. Some of these customers, like the SPA, we've already paid some of the claims already. The losses for the industry is significant, but we have sufficient reinsurance cover for most of those losses. Now, what we've done is, while there's a threat from a lot of payments of claims, there's also an opportunity because a lot of clients are beginning to see the value of insurance and approaching the companies for new business. I'm not sure if there's any other part I've not on. Yes, I think the director's fees, maybe Donald can speak on that briefly.
Yes. So straight to what Mr. was said, that's very strange to me. Directors don't get paid except they attend meetings. As a matter of fact, if a director attends, purportedly comes to a meeting and the meeting has ended, he doesn't get paid. So, and I don't know the representation that you have seen, but what we have indicated there, and I think we wrote it in plain ink, is that directors are paid at the end of a particular period, except it is sitting allowance that you're talking about. That sitting allowance also, they get paid after each meeting, not before. So essentially, we don't gift monies to directors for purposes of the meetings. Page. Yeah, so you see sitting allowance, it says this is paid only after each board meeting, duly attended. I'm on page 34. Director's fees. This is paid in the last quarter of the year. And as I speak with you, the 2019 fees has not even been paid. So when you say we pay in advance, I struggle to understand it. As I speak with you here and now, we have not even paid for the year. So essentially, it doesn't work that way.
And shareholders, I think those for Mr. Nonna, there were questions around the amendments on the resolutions. And the CFO will quickly, briefly talk on that, please.
Okay, thank you, MD. Thank you, shareholders and directors. So, on the resolutions. Apologies. So, on the resolutions, we track our share price, and we also track what we were doing and the impact on the market. So, at the beginning of the year, even when we had a file behind the offer, there were questions from shareholders whether the right to qualify, and we told them yes. Our plan was to close our right on time, which is why we have been moving AGM because of what happened. We didn't plan for COVID, we didn't plan for NSAS. Now, in September, when there was when we hit the qualification date and we could not move it on time, I know there was a markdown of about 10%. Also, we are discussing to get to know those that may be affected so that by the change in the timing, we're trying to get to know the shareholders that may be affected. And the reason why we had to change the ratio was because we're also checking that we don't breach any rule. There's a rule on excess dividend tax. We don't want to breach it because it will cost the company a lot. There are also other rules we are looking at. On November 30th, the second qualification date, our share price moved from 1 naira to 1 naira 10 kobo. In fact, I had to call to try and find out from NSC, was there no markdown? But I realized that some shareholders were still buying. So that day, on November 30th, there was no markdown because share price moved from 1 naira to 1 naira 10 kobo. So no shareholder lost since that date. But for September, yes, we noticed that there was a markdown on that date, September 23rd. But we are looking to that to see what could be done. Now, I think I've answered that, so I don't know, but I don't have the right to, so I'll wait for you before we talk to others.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tunde, Donald, and CFO, Mr. Deji.
Sorry,
I think as much as possible, we have answered all the questions. If there are still any questions unanswered or if there are any additional questions, may kindly send to Company Secretary. by way of email or any other mode, and we will endeavor to answer all your questions. Thank you very much. I now put the motion in item number 1 to the meeting that the report of the directors and the balance sheet as at 31st December 2019, together with the profit and loss account for the year ended on that day, and the reports thereon of the auditors and the statutory audit committee be and hereby laid. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I so do, Mr. Chairman. My name is A.K. Chibuzo Emmanuel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eke. Those who are in favor of this motion, please signify by raising up your admission cards in your right hands. Thank you. Those who are against this motion, please signify by raising up your admission cards in your right hands. None. Thank you. I hereby declare that the motion in item number 1 has been duly carried. Agenda number 2, election, re-election of the directors. The next item of the agenda is the election and retirement of the directors by rotation and re-election in accordance with the articles of association of the company. Number 1, Mr. Olalekan Akinyami, non-executive director. Mr. Olalekan Akinyami is the founder and chief executive officer of Lek Oil Limited, an African-focused oil exploration and production company. Since inception, he has led the company through an IPO and subsequent fundraisers of over $200 million on the London Stock Exchange AIM market. This funded Lek Oil's farm-in to OPL 310 and subsequent discovery of Ogo Field, one of the world's largest in 2013, with estimated gross resources of 774 MMBOE. In September 2015, Lek Oil achieved first oil on its Otakikpo marginal field just 9 months after commencing operations and currently producing at 6,000 barrels a day. In October 2015, the company announced its acquisition of controlling interest in OPL 325. Lek Oil has over 20 years of experience in the oil and gas industry and was the international energy sector head at Alliance Bernstein, LP in New York. Global asset manager with over $400 billion under management, with direct responsibility for $1 billion energy and natural resources portfolio. Prior to that, he was a member of number 1 institutional investor rank team of analysts covering the oil field service industry as an associated director at UBS Investment Research. Lek Oil has held engineering and operational roles within Schlumberger in the career that span Nigeria, Egypt, Pakistan, Oman, and Scotland. Mr. Olalekan Akinyami graduated from Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria with a Bachelor of Science degree in Electronics and Electronic Engineering, and also hold an MBA from MIT Sloan School of Management. He is recently appointed non-executive director of AIICO Insurance PLC. I hereby move that Mr. Olalekan Akinyami be and is hereby elected a director of your company in a non-executive capacity. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I so do, Mr. Chairman. Bakari Adebisi Oluwayemisi.
Thank you, Madam Bakari. Those who are in favor of this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hands. Thank you. Those who are against this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hands. Thanks, none. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Okay. Mr. Raymond Snyders. Mr. Raymond is a partner of Leapfrog Investment, who was recently appointed as a non-executive director on the board of AIICO Insurance PLC, having been recommended by Leapfrog Investment to represent its interests in AIICO Insurance PLC. Raymond brings to bear his experience as one of the most seasoned insurance leaders on the African continent to the benefit of the Leapfrog team and the partner companies. He joined Leapfrog from Old Mutual Group, where he worked as the CEO of Mutual and Federal, the 185 years old insurer. He led a turnaround of the company as a part of the Old Mutual Group strategy to establish itself as a leading financial services group across the African continent. Under his leadership, Mutual and Federal was rebranded to become Old Mutual Insure. Prior to this, Raymond served in executive leadership position in the Old Mutual Group, leading large multidisciplinary teams in the area of business such as distribution, bancassurance, investment, and wealth management. Key
Chairman,
positions include...
Chairman, sir, there's an observation from the floor, please.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, sir, we don't need all that. We've seen it in the annual report. We have everything, so just say it and let, to save our time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If no one has any objection, we can skip and consider the profile of the directors as read. Thank you very much. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I rise to second the motion. My name is Mrs. E.O. Obidei.
Thank you, Madam. Those who are in favor of this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hands. Thank you very much. Those who are against this motion, please signify by raising up your admission cards in your right hands. None. Thank you. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. The next director is Mr. Olushola Ajayi, Executive Director. Shareholders, you want me to read the profile of Mr. Olushola, or you want me to skip and consider that as read by the shareholders?
Taken as read.
Thank you very much. I hereby move that Mr. Olushola Ajayi be and is hereby elected a director of your company in an executive capacity. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I, Camry Lawrence, hereby second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Those who are in favor of this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hand. All. Thank you. Those who are against this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hands. Thanks again. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Mrs. Folakemi Edun is the director retiring by rotation under Article 94 of the Companies Articles and Section 259 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2004. Being eligible and having indicated her willingness to stay in office, she also presents herself for re-election. I hereby move that the retiring director, Mrs. Folake Edun, be and is hereby re-elected a director of your company. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
I second the motion. My name is Mrs. E.O. Obidei.
Thank you, Madam. Those who are in favor of this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hand. Thank you. Those who are against this motion, please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hand. None. Thank you. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. The next item of the agenda, agenda number 3, to appoint auditors and fix their remuneration. The next item of the agenda is to appoint auditors and authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors. The audit firm Ernst & Young Professional Services, the external auditors of your company, have performed their duties credibly for the outgoing years. In accordance with Section 359 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2004, Messrs. Ernst & Young have indicated their willingness to continue in office as external auditors of the company. It is, however, required that their remuneration be fixed by the company in general meeting or such manner as the company in general meeting may determine. I therefore move that the firm of Ernst & Young be and are hereby reappointed as the auditors, and the directors be and are hereby authorized to fix the remuneration of the auditors who have indicated their willingness to continue in office as auditors of the company until the end of the current financial year. Would someone please rise and second the motion?
Bakari Adebisi Oluwayemisi, I second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Bakare. Are there any questions before the motion is put to the meeting? Okay, thank you very much. I now put the motion to the meeting. Would those who are in favor of the motion please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hand? Thank you very much. Would those objecting to the motion please signify by raising up your admission card in your right hand? Thank you. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. The next item on the agenda is the election of members of the Statutory Audit Committee. In line with Section 359(4) of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2004, the board has elected 3 of its members to represent it on the Audit Committee. They are Mr. Samaila Dalat Zubairu, Mr. Ademola Adibisi, and Mr. Raymond Snyders. As for the shareholders representatives on the committee, the secretary reported that 26 nominations had been received by him from members in accordance with Section 359 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2004. Of the 26 nominations, 9 are valid. I will invite the company secretary to go through the names of valid nominations.
Good afternoon once
Mr. Khan.
again. So out of the 26 nominations, 9 turned out valid. What actually happened was that some people that put in the nominations either are not members of AIICO because their names could not be found, or people that put them up for nomination, their names could not be found on the register. The 9 names we have here, Rabiu Bolagade T was nominated by Abbas Yekini. Adio Aruno Abiola was nominated by Sheriffdeen Mowan. And then Sheriffdeen Mowan also was nominated by Rabiu Bolagade. Abbas Yekini was nominated by Adio Abiola. Chief Robert Igwe was nominated by Matthew Akinlade. Chief Njoku Edmond Ozama was nominated by Christian Chinonyerem. Igwebe Alex Ifemenam was nominated by Abara Okezie. Mrs. Esther Funke Augustine was nominated by Pastor Alex Adio, and Omar Keinde Sheriffdeen was nominated by Bakare Sherifat. Since a maximum of 3 members are statutorily required from either side to bring the number of the committee to its maximum number of 6, and there are 9 valid nominations from the members within the stipulated time, may I suggest that the registrars and the auditors conduct the election to elect the 3 members of the shareholders.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, that's the list. I'll just mark it.
Okay. Thank you. Please, may I? Mr. Rabiu Bolagade, please, as I call your names, can you come out? Thank you. Mr. Rabiu?
Not here.
Okay, not here. Mr. Adio Aruna? I'm calling for them to come out. Mr. Sherifidin Morwan? Mr. Abbas Yekini? Chief Igwe Robert? Chief Njoku Edmond? Igwegbe Alex? Mrs. Esther Funke Augustine, and Mr. Omar Kende. Okay, they are not here, but I'll still call their names for the nomination, just for the purposes of... Okay, so please, if you're voting in favor of Mr. Rabiu Bolagade, can you raise up your hands? Thank you. Nobody. If you're voting for Mr. Adio Aruna Abiola, can you raise up your hands, please? If you're voting in favor of Mr. Sherifuddin Morwan, can we see your hands up? If you're voting in favor of Mr. Abbas Yekini, can we see your hands up? If you're voting in favor of Chief Igwe Roberts, can we see your hands? Thank you. Please, can you count? Thank you. If we're voting in favor of Chief Njoku Edmond, can we see your hand? Thank you. If you're voting in favor of Mr. Igwegbe Alex Ife, if you're voting in favor of Mrs. Esther Funke Augustine, thank you. And if you're voting in favor of Mr. Omar, who happens to be the last person on this list, thank you very much. I would like to state the number of votes. For Chief Igwe Robert, you have 12 votes. For Chief Njoku Edmond, you have 12 votes. And for Mrs. Esther Funke, you have 12 votes. Thank you.
Sorry. So sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hereby declare that the results of the election be announced by the registrars. And I can imagine that the three shareholders nominees' votes have been announced. So we have all witnessed the election of the members of the Statutory Audit Committee. In line with the results as produced by the registrars and the auditors, I therefore declare that the following shareholders and the directors have been duly elected members of AIICO Audit Committee until the conclusion of the next annual general meeting in accordance with the provisions of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. Number 1, Mrs. Esther Funke Augustine, Chief Robert Igwe, Chief Njoku Edmond Uzoma, Mrs. Samaila Dalhat Zubairu, Mr. Ademola Adibisi, and Mr. Raymond Snyders. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the ordinary businesses to be considered at this meeting. May we now proceed to deliberate on the special business of the day. When we started our recapitalization journey, we explained that we would carry out a right issue of 50 kobo each at 80 kobo per share. We also mentioned that we would issue bonus shares after the rights, and the right shares would qualify. Consequently, our rights was 126% subscribed, but unfortunately, we were yet to obtain the regulatory approvals for the rights issue as at the date of our AGM, which is 8th of December 2020. Unfortunately, COVID-19, the NSARS protests and riots affected the timing. These delays led to our moving the AGM dates and the bonus issue dates from the earlier dates fixed for that purpose. We consulted widely and received advices that an amended resolution could be presented at the AGM for the shareholders to approve. If approved, it becomes binding on all, as the shareholders have the ultimate say in bonus and the dividend decisions. Hence, we are presenting the proposed amended resolutions that would allow all shareholders, whether or not they picked up their rights, to benefit in full on the bonus. The amendments to the resolutions are explained further.
Chairman, sir, sorry to
yes,
interrupt into the presentation you're making. There's an observation that the CFO wants to make, subject to the amendment that you're proposing currently, so that will be taken alongside the resolution that you want to present. Please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the Company Secretary. So after the first presentation, I spoke further with shareholders present, and I want to clarify this. Our share price was marked down subsequently. That was the next day for the November 30th. But after also speaking with shareholders, we had to make this clarification. Initially, when we issued that bonus, when we proposed the bonus, you know, like we said, it's an unusual year. Nobody planned for the COVID. Nobody planned for NSARS. So the way we planned it was the way it's supposed to run, which is what we promised all shareholders at every meeting, every forum, every people that send messages to us. Now, these things happen, and we had to adjust. And we had to adjust because we realized that we're running a risk of not getting approval for our bonus. So this is a way we've tried to adjust so that all shareholders will be happy, so that you understand, and we'll hope to get your support in passing the amended resolutions. Thank you.